It was a sunny afternoon in Oakwood Hills. The sun was shining bright and the sky was a big, happy blue. Everything felt perfect, like the kind of day you see in a movie. Birds were chirping little songs, flying from tree to tree. Kids were laughing and playing in the yards, chasing each other with big smiles. I was outside, too, standing on my front porch. I had something new, a wind chime. It was a pretty little thing made of shiny metal tubes that dangled down. When the wind blew, it made a soft, tinkling sound like tiny bells. I thought it would make my house feel special, like a cozy home where I could relax. Simple, right? Just a little decoration to add some fun to my day. But oh boy, not everyone liked it as much as I did. Let me tell you about Linda Harper. She lived down the street, and she was the boss of our neighborhood, or at least she acted like it. Linda was the queen of the HOA. That's short for Homeowners Association, a group that makes rules about how our houses and yards should look. Linda took her job way too seriously. She walked around like she owned every house, every tree, every blade of grass. Her eyes were always watching, like a hawk hunting for something to pounce on. If your grass was too long, Linda would know. If your trash can stayed out too late, Linda would write you a note. Most people in Oakwood Hills just sighed and ignored her. They'd roll their eyes when she wasn't looking and whisper, "Oh, that's just Linda being Linda." But me, I was new here. I didn't know how big of a deal she could make out of nothing. And I had no idea she was about to turn my little wind chime into the biggest problem ever. Or that she was hiding a secret so huge it would flip everything upside down. So there I was, standing on my porch, holding my wind chime. It was brand new, and I was excited. I'd just moved into this house a few weeks ago, and I wanted to make it mine. The wind chime was small, with 5 shiny tubes hanging from a wooden circle. When I tapped it, it made a gentle ding-ding-ding sound. I smiled because it sounded so peaceful, like music from the air. I grabbed a little hook and nailed it to the porch roof. Then I hung the wind chime up, letting it sway in the breeze. The sun sparkled off the metal and the tinkling started right away. I stepped back and looked at it. "Perfect," I said to myself. I thought it was the best thing ever, a tiny touch of happiness for my new home. But then I heard footsteps, fast, stomping footsteps. I turned around, and there she was, Linda Harper, marching across my lawn like she was on a mission. Her face was all scrunched up like she'd just bitten into a sour lemon. She had her arms crossed tight, and her eyes were locked on my wind chime. I didn't even get a chance to say hi. "What is that?" she snapped, pointing at it like it was a monster. I blinked. It's a wind chime," I said, trying to sound nice. "I just hung it up." Linda shook her head so hard I thought it might fall off. "That's not allowed," she said, her voice loud and sharp. "It's too noisy. It's against the rules." I was confused. Too noisy? It was just a little tinkle-tinkle. How could that bother anyone? I looked around. The birds were still chirping. The kids were still shouting and laughing down the street. My wind chime was quieter than all of that. "Linda," I said, keeping my voice calm, "it's not loud, it's just a decoration." But she didn't care. She took a step closer, her finger still pointing. "You're new here," she said, like that explained everything. "You don't know how things work. I'm in charge of this neighborhood, and I say that thing has to go." I stared at her. Was she serious? It was just a wind chime, but the way she glared at me, I could tell she meant business. Little did I know this was only the start of something way crazier. See, Linda wasn't just bossy, she loved being in control. Everyone in Oakwood Hills had a Linda story, like the time she told Mr. Jenkins his mailbox was too blue and made him paint it gray. Or the time she yelled at little Timmy for riding his bike too fast on the sidewalk. People usually just nodded and did what she said to keep her quiet, but I wasn't like that. I didn't want to fight, but I also didn't want to take my wind chime down. It was mine, and I liked it. Plus, I didn't think she had the right to boss me around over something so small. What I didn't realize was that Linda was ready to take this to a whole new level. And what I really did know, she had a secret, a big, sneaky secret, that was about to come crashing out into the open. That afternoon, after Linda stomped away, I sat on my porch and watched the wind chimes sway. The ding-ding-ding was soft and sweet, like a little hello from the wind. I thought about what she'd said. Too noisy, that didn't make sense. I'd heard dogs barking louder than this. I'd heard lawnmowers roaring every weekend. A wind chime wasn't hurting anyone, but Linda acted like it was the end of the world. I started to wonder why she cared so much. Was she just grumpy? Did she hate pretty sounds? Or was there something else going on? I leaned back in my chair, listening to the chime, and decided I'd keep it up. If Linda wanted a war over this, I'd let her try. I had no clue she was about to call the cops, or that the cops were already sniffing around her for something way worse. The sun started to dip lower, painting the sky with pink and orange. Oakwood Hills looked so calm, like a picture on a postcard. My house was a little white one with a red door right at the edge of the street. I'd moved here to start fresh, to have a quiet life. The wind chime was part of that, a tiny piece of joy. I didn't think it would make anyone mad, especially not Linda Harper. But as I sat there, I couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming. Linda's voice kept echoing in my head. "It's against the rules." Rules? What rules? I hadn't seen any rule book saying wind chimes were bad. Maybe she was making it up. Maybe she just liked yelling. Or maybe, just maybe, she was hiding something she didn't want anyone to find out. Looking back, that sunny afternoon was the last peaceful moment I'd have for a while. My wind chime was about to become famous in Oakwood Hills, but not for the reason Linda thought. She saw it as a problem, a little enemy she could squash, but she didn't know it would turn the tables on her. See, Linda Harper wasn't as perfect as she pretended to be. She walked around acting like the queen, but queens can fall. And oh, how she was about to fall! I didn't know it yet, but that wind chime was the start of something huge. something that would make the whole neighborhood gasp. Linda thought she could scare me into taking it down. She thought she was the boss, but she had no idea what was waiting around the corner, or that her own secrets were about to ring louder than any wind chime ever could. So there I was, new to Oakwood Hills, just trying to enjoy my porch and my tinkling decoration. Linda Harper was ready to make my life tricky, all because of a little sound she didn't like. Most people would have given up, taken the chime down, and let her win, but not me. I didn't know it then, but I was about to stumble into a mess that would show everyone who Linda really was. That sunny afternoon was perfect until it was. The birds kept chirping, the kids kept playing, and my wind chime kept jingling. And Linda, she kept watching. What she didn't see was the storm coming her way, a storm she'd started herself. Stick around, because this story's just getting started. Linda Harper came stomping over to my house the very second my wind chime made its first little sound. The wind blew, and the chime went ding, 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 soft and pretty like tiny bells. I was standing on my porch, smiling at how nice it sounded. But then I heard her, those loud, fast footsteps crunching the grass. I turned around, and there she was, marching right up to me. Her face was bright red, like a big, juicy tomato you'd see at the store. She looked so mad I thought steam might come out of her ears. "That noise is against the rules," she yelled, her voice sharp and loud. She pointed at my wind chime like it was a bad guy she wanted to catch. I didn't want to fight. I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. "Linda," I said, nice and slow, "it's just a wind chime. It's not loud at all." I mean, it was. The sound was so soft, like a whisper from the wind. I could still hear the birds chirping and the kids laughing down the street. My wind chime wasn't bothering anybody, but Linda. Oh, she didn't care what I said. She crossed her arms tight and glared at me with her mean eyes. Then she leaned in close, her bony finger jabbing the air right in front of my face. "You're new here," she hissed, like that was some big crime. "So I'll let it slide this time. But you better take that thing down, or I'm calling the cops." The cops? Over a wind chime? I almost laughed out loud. It sounded so silly. I mean, cops come for big stuff, like if someone's stealing or breaking something, not for a little ding-ding-ding on a porch. I opened my mouth to say something, but then I saw her eyes. They were narrow and serious, like she meant every word. The laugh stuck in my throat, and I just stared at her. Was she really going to call the police because of my decoration? I couldn't believe it. But the way she stood there, all puffed up and angry, told me she wasn't joking around. Linda Harper was ready to make this a huge deal, and I didn't know what to do. I watched her turn around and stomp back to her house. Her shoes slapped the ground hard, like she was trying to scare the grass. I stood there on my porch looking at my wind chime. It was still swinging a little, making that soft, happy sound. I liked it. It made me feel good. But now Linda had me worried. What if she really did call the cops? Would they come and tell me to take it down? Would I get in trouble over something so small? My head was spinning with questions. I didn't want a big fight, but I also didn't want to let Linda boss me around. This was my house, my porch, my wind chime. Why did she get to decide? I sat down on my porch chair and listened to the chime some more. Ding, ding, ding. It was so quiet and peaceful. How could anyone hate that? But Linda did. She hated it so much she was ready to call the police on me. I started thinking about her. What made her so mad all the time? She was always walking around the neighborhood looking for stuff to complain about. Like the time she told Mrs. Carter her flowers were too bright and needed to be changed. Or when she yelled at Tommy for leaving his skateboard in his own driveway. Linda loved rules and she loved making everyone follow them. But this wind chime thing, it felt different. It felt personal, like she was picking on me just because I was new. I didn't know it yet, but Linda had a secret. A big, sneaky secret she didn't want anyone to find out. She acted like the queen of Oakwood Hills, always telling people what to do, but something was hiding behind all that yelling and pointing. I couldn't see it then, standing there on my porch. All I saw was a grumpy lady who didn't like my wind chime. But that secret, it was like a bomb waiting to go off. And my little wind chime was about to light the fuse without me even knowing it. As the sun got lower in the sky, I kept thinking about what Linda said. "Take it down, or I'm calling the cops." Her voice was stuck in my head, loud and bossy. I looked at the wind chime again. It was so pretty, shining in the light. I didn't want to take it down. It wasn't hurting anyone, but Linda made me feel nervous. What if the cops really showed up? What if they knocked on my door and said, "Hey, get rid of that chime"? I didn't want that. I just wanted to enjoy my new house and my little decoration. But Linda was making it hard. The more I thought about it, the more I got a funny feeling. Why was she so mad about this? It wasn't just the wind chime. It couldn't be. There had to be something else, something bigger. I didn't have any proof, but I could feel it, like when you know a storm's coming even though the sky's still clear. Linda was hiding something, and my wind chime was poking at it like a stick in a beehive. She didn't want me to have it up because it made her upset. But why? What was she so afraid of? I leaned back in my chair and watched the wind chime sway. The ding 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 was like a little song telling me to stay strong. I decided right then I wasn't taking it down, not yet. Linda could yell all she wanted, but I wasn't going to let her scare me. If she wanted to call the cops, let her try. I didn't think they'd care about something so silly. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't know, was that Linda's secret was about to blow up in her face. And when it did, my wind chime would be right in the middle of it all. The tension was building, like a rubber band stretching tighter and tighter. Something big was coming, and I had no idea how wild it was about to get. The next day I woke up and looked at my wind chime. It was still hanging on my porch, swinging a little in the morning breeze. That soft ding-ding-ding sound made me smile. I thought about Linda and how mad she got yesterday. She told me to take it down or she'd call the cops. But I didn't want to. Call it stubbornness, I guess. I wasn't going to let her boss me around like that. It was my house, my wind chime, and I liked it, so I left it up. I thought, what's the worst that could happen? Oh boy, I had no idea what was coming. It felt like a big mistake, or so I thought. By noon, the sun was high in the sky, and I was inside making a sandwich. I had peanut butter on my fingers when I heard something outside. I wiped my hands and peeked out the window. There she was, Linda Harper. She was packing back and forth on my lawn right in front of my house. Her face was all scrunched up, and her eyes were locked on my wind chime. She held her phone tight in her hand like it was a weapon. She kept glaring at the chime like it had said something mean about her family. I watched her, feeling a little annoyed. Why couldn't she just leave me alone? But I was curious, too. What was she going to do? Then it happened. Linda stopped packing, lifted her phone, and dialed a number. I couldn't believe it. She was calling 911 right there on my grass. I pressed my face closer to the window so I could hear. Her voice was loud and screechy, like a bird that wouldn't stop squawking. "Hello, yes, this is an emergency," she shouted into the phone. "There's a disturbance. It's unbearable. You need to send someone right now." I blinked. A disturbance? Unbearable? She was talking about my wind chime. That tiny ding-ding-ding sound was her big emergency. I wanted to roll my eyes so hard they'd fall out. Half of me was mad. How could she be so silly? But the other half was curious. What would happen next? I stayed by the window, peeking out like a spy. Linda hung up the phone and crossed her arms, looking smug. She stood there, tapping her foot, waiting for something. I figured she thought the cops would come racing over to yell at me. I started to feel a little nervous. What if they did show up? Would they make me take the wind chime down? I didn't want that, but I also didn't want to back down. Linda was being a bully, and I wasn't going to let her win so easy. I took a deep breath and kept watching. That's when something really weird happened. Something I didn't see coming at all. A police car rolled down the street. I saw the red and blue lights on top, and my stomach did a little flip. Oh no, I thought, she really did it. The cops are here for my wind chime. The car moved slow, like it was looking for the right house. I held my breath, waiting for it to stop in front of my porch, but it didn't. It kept going right past my house. The car parked in front of Linda's house instead. I blinked hard. Wait, what? Two officers stepped out of the car. They were big guys with serious faces, wearing dark uniforms. They didn't even look my way. They walked straight toward Linda's front door. What was going on? I couldn't believe my eyes. Linda was still standing on my lawn, her back to the street. She didn't see the police car yet. She was too busy glaring at my wind chime, probably thinking she'd won. But I saw everything. The officers stood by her house, one of them holding a little notebook. They looked like they meant business, not the kind of business Linda was expecting. I started to wonder, why were they at her house? Did this have something to do with the wind chime, or was it something else? My brain was buzzing with questions, and I couldn't look away. Linda finally turned around. She saw the police car, and her face changed fast. That smug look melted away like ice cream on a hot day. Her mouth opened a little and her eyes got wide. She looked confused, maybe even scared. I leaned closer to the window, trying to figure it out. The officers didn't move toward my house. They stayed by Linda's, waiting. She took a step back, clutching her phone. "What's this?" she muttered, loud enough for me to hear. I could tell she didn't expect this at all. She thought the cops were coming for me, not her. My heart started beating faster. This was getting crazy. I'd left the wind chime up because I didn't want Linda to bully me. Now she'd called 911, but the police were at her house. Something big was happening, and I didn't know what. I started to think maybe this wasn't just about the wind chime. Maybe Linda had done something else, something bad. Why else would the cops show up like this? I felt a little spark of excitement. Was she in trouble? Was my wind chime about to turn everything upside down? I kept watching, half hiding behind my curtain. Linda walked toward the officers, her steps slow and shaky. She didn't look like the bossy HOA queen anymore. She looked nervous, like a kid caught sneaking cookies. The officers said something to her, but I couldn't hear it. One of them pointed at her house, and the other wrote something in his notebook. Linda's hands waved around like she was trying to explain. I couldn't tell what was happening, but I knew it wasn't good for her. My wind chime kept tinkling in the breeze, soft and happy, like it didn't care about the drama. That's when I realized this was bigger than I thought. Linda's 911 call was supposed to scare me, but it was backfiring. The cops weren't here for my chime. They were here for her. I didn't know why yet, but I could feel it. Something sneaky was hiding behind Linda's angry face. My stubbornness had started a chain, and little bits of the truth were starting to peek out. What was she hiding? Why were the police at her door? I had no answers, but I knew one thing. This day was about to get a lot wilder, and my wind chime was right in the middle of it. I couldn't believe what was happening. This was too wild to miss. I grabbed my phone off the table fast, my hands shaking a little from excitement. I hit the record button because I had to catch every second of this. Linda was still out there on my lawn, looking so smug, like she'd just won a big prize. She hung up her 911 call a minute ago, and I could tell she thought the cops were here for me. She was sure they'd march over, tell me to take down my wind chime, and make her the hero. She even started walking toward them, her head held high, ready to point her finger at me and say, "That's the troublemaker." Oh, she was so sure of herself. But what happened next? It flipped everything upside down. The two officers stood by Linda's house, looking serious. They didn't even glance my way, not once. I was peeking out my window, holding my phone up, recording it all. Linda got closer to them, her arms swinging like she was in charge. But then one of the cops held up his hand and said, "Linda Harper." His voice was loud and clear. "We need to speak with you, now." Linda stopped dead in her tracks, that smug grin on her face. It vanished like someone had wiped it off with a big eraser. Her mouth opened, but no words came out at first. She looked confused, like she didn't understand what was happening. Finally, she stammered, "What, me? This is about that wind chime." She pointed back at my porch, trying to blame me again. The cop shook his head, slow and calm. "No, ma'am," he said, "this isn't about the wind chime." Linda blinked hard, her eyes getting big. The officer kept going. "It's about the complaints we've gotten about you." My ears perked up. Complaints about Linda. I leaned closer to the window, making sure my phone caught every word. The cop's voice stayed steady. "Noise violations, harassment, and oh yeah, that little side business you've been running." My jaw dropped so fast it almost hit the floor. Side business? What was he talking about? Linda's face turned pale, like all the color drained out of her. She looked like a ghost standing there, her hands shaking a little. I couldn't believe it. A side business. Linda Harper, the HOA queen, was doing something sneaky. I kept recording, my heart pounding. The whole street was watching now. Neighbors poked their heads out of doors and windows, staring at Linda and the cops. Mr. Jenkins from next door stepped onto his porch, his dog barking behind him. Mrs. Carter peeked over her fence, holding her gardening shovel. Even little Timmy stopped riding his bike and stood there, mouth open. Everyone could feel it. Something big was happening. Linda wasn't the bossy ruler she pretended to be. She was in trouble, and it was all coming out right here, right now. Linda tried to talk again. "This is a mistake," she said, her voice wobbly. "I'm the one keeping this neighborhood good. That wind chime is the problem." She pointed at my house again, but the cops didn't even turn their heads. The second officer stepped forward, holding his little notebook. "We've had calls, ma'am," he said. "Lots of them. People saying you've been yelling at them, making rules that don't exist, bothering them all the time." Linda's eyes darted around like she was looking for a way to run. The cop kept going. "And then there's the money stuff. You've been charging people for fake permits, haven't you?" My brain was spinning. Fake permits, money stuff. What did that mean? I kept my phone steady, recording every word. Linda's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She didn't know what to say. The first cop nodded. "Yeah, we've got proof," he said. "Neighbors told us you've been taking cash, saying it's for official HOA fees. But there's no record of that money anywhere except in your pocket." Linda's knees wobbled, and she grabbed her mailbox to stay standing. I gasped so loud I almost dropped my phone. She'd been stealing from us. The whole time she was bossing everyone around, she was sneaking money behind our backs. The street got quiet except for my wind chime. That little ding-ding-ding kept going, soft and happy in the breeze. Linda looked like she wanted to disappear. "That's not true," she yelled, but her voice was weak now. The cop raised an eyebrow. "We'll see about that," he said. "You're coming with us to answer some questions." Linda's face went from pale to red again, but this time it wasn't from anger. It was panic. She'd called 911 to get me in trouble, but now she was the one in hot water. And it was all because of her own sneaky tricks. I couldn't stop staring. This was the big moment, the reveal I never saw coming. Linda Harper wasn't just a grumpy lady who hated my wind chime. She was a crook. She'd been pretending to be the perfect HOA queen, making up rules and yelling at everyone while secretly taking money she wasn't supposed to have. My wind